Yes, and you're waking up with Damo here on 4WK. And as we always say, nice to have your company this morning. And we do like to have some local history. We do that with History Out There and Harold Peacock. How are you, mate?
A fantastic gamer, and this is a world championship, world status story I'm telling today.
I know there is so many worlds in this one. It's the world first world champion Shearer.
That's right, and from right here in Toowoomba too. The very first sheep-shearing contest decided in Australia for the World's Championship took place in 1911 in the Austral Hall right here in Toowoomba.
Wow.
Now, the Austral Hall, back then, it was the largest building of its type in Queensland. It's since been relocated, and today it's actually the John Reid Pavilion at the Brisbane Exhibition Grounds.
Right.
And yet, nobody knows. Well, they don't seem to realise that 114 years ago, the building actually hosted the very first World Sheep-Shearing Championship. Now, that contest was pretty rich. It came with a purse of £500 with a £100 side wager. This is 1911, so those totals were around about the same as $500,000 today to the winner.
Yeah.
Now, none of the noted shed champions of the time took part in it because it was a very different competition. See, it wasn't all about speed like in a normal shed. Points were awarded for quality and style, sort of like gymnastics, that kind of thing, right? Now, the competition was for 2.5 hours shearing, which was about the equivalent of a normal run. The contestants in this final were Fred Zimmerli of Toowoomba and Charlie Mora of Glen Innes. Now, Zimmerli was really well known and had been the benchmark for a long time for all shearers, while Mora came with a really big reputation. Now, this was the first such contest to crown a world champion, and the whole countryside, everyone was talking about it. And it happened on Wednesday, the 15th of February, 1911, so coming up to the 114th anniversary. And 2,000 spectators packed into the Austral Hall to witness the unique indoor event. The men came forward. Now, this is great reporting from the media back then. The men came forward, this is how it was reported, stripped to the waist. They were described as brown, lithe and muscular.
Right.
And they said that Zimmerli dashed in with a long, sweeping stroke, full of confidence, whereas Mora, he was rather nervous and jerky, and his work was said to lack the clean efficiency of his opponent. It was a big event. Now, the sprint component, the sheer numbers, was won by Zimmerli, who shore 32 sheep to Mora's 28. Now, that may seem like small numbers compared to non-competition shearing, because these shearers were paying extra attention to the technical detail.
Right.
You see, the judges allocated 150 points for speed, but there were 300 points for quality of work and 100 points for style. Now, the judges' decision was unanimous, and that was that Zimmerli had scored the most points, which gave him and Toowoomba the very first World Sheep-Shearing Championship.
Wow.
Now, look, his opponent, Mora, he may have lost, but he did have a reputation for coming back. You see, Mora, years before, when he was just 20 years old, he was living in Bengera near Glen Innes when he contracted typhoid. Now, he was in hospital for 14 weeks. That's 3.5 months.
Yeah.
And for 3 of those weeks, he lived on brandy alone and went from weighing 12 stone to just 6.5.
Oh.
And he was finally pronounced dead. And the undertakers measured him for his coffin. And as he was being carried off the bed for the last time, one of the undertakers actually dropped him.
Oh.
And Mora stirred. So it was said that 6 hospital staff lost their jobs because of his resurrection.
Wow.
He was still alive. Now, as for the Toowoomba champion, Zimmerli, he also cheated death. That's because in 1925, Zimmerli survived the Traviston train disaster when the Rockhampton mail train derailed from on top of a timber trestle bridge near Traviston on the north coastline. 10 people were killed and 40 injured, which up to that time was the worst railway accident in Queensland history. Today, it's still the second worst ever. Now, Zimmerli, he was a passenger on his way to Buckalden for a shearing job. He was in the carriage when it went off the bridge and crashed the creek below. He said he noticed nothing unusual until after he dozed off 5 minutes before the accident. He was awakened by a bump and immediately knew he was falling. He went unconscious, and the next thing he heard was the sound of an axe being used by a rescuer to cut open the carriage. So these guys had really big stories, and they were shearing champions. And, of course, Fred Zimmerli, the world's first champion sheep shearer, he died in Toowoomba in 1942. And today he's buried in the Drayton and Toowoomba Cemetery. He's got in the family plot, so there's a big headstone, but nothing to indicate his shearing title. And Charlie Mora, well, he was a loser in 1911, but he may finally have got the better of things because he outlived Zimmerli by 15 years and got the responsible job of night watchman at the Supreme Court of Queensland.
Right.
But Fred, he's still a Darling Downs champion, so let's talk about him.
There you go. Oh, mate, another good story. Now, of course, you'll be putting this up online and people can go where to find it?
Absolutely. I'll post these on Friday mornings, and you can go online to historyouthere.com. And there's photos of these champions from all those years ago. It's a really good read.
All right, you can check it all out. Thank you so much, mate, and you have a great week, and we'll look forward to catching up next week.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. HistoryOutThere.com. News is next.